Chapter 1. Extramarital Relationships. Life. It's never as simple as it looks from the outside. People see the crown, they see the dresses, the smiles, and they think they know you. But they don't. They never do. When I married Charles, I thought I was stepping into a fairy tale. A princess, marrying her prince. The world watched us, and for a while, it felt like we were living the dream. But dreams, as I learned quickly, don't always come true. Sometimes they shatter into pieces you can't put back together. I was lonely. I was lost in a world that was too big for me. The palace, the press, the expectations, they were suffocating. I thought I was doing the right thing, being the dutiful wife, the mother to our children. But the truth was I was drowning. And when you're drowning, you'll do anything to stay afloat. That's when I met James. James Hewitt. He wasn't like the others. He was different. He made me feel seen. He made me feel like I wasn't just the Princess of Wales, but Diana, the woman, the person, the human being. He gave me something I hadn't felt in years. Affection, attention, a sense of being wanted for who I was, not what I was. I know people talked. Oh, how they talked. The press, the cameras, the whispers behind closed doors. It wasn't just a fling. It wasn't just a moment of weakness.
It was a lifeline.
It was the only time I felt like I mattered, like I was more than just a title or a role to play. I wasn't just the wife anymore. I was Diana, a woman who needed love, who needed to feel whole. But nothing is ever simple, is it? The consequences of that relationship, of all the relationships I had during my marriage, were impossible to ignore. I knew the damage it would cause. I knew it would tear at the fabric of my marriage with Charles. But I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to make the pain go away. And I thought, maybe if I just kept going, if I just kept searching for something would fill the emptiness inside me. But it didn't. Nothing ever did. I loved Charles. I did. But we were two people who couldn't reach each other. We were two strangers in a marriage that was never what I had hoped for. And as the years went on, the distance grew. The coldness between us became unbearable. So, I sought comfort where I could find it. And yes, I made mistakes. I made choices I regret, choices that hurt people I loved. I hurt Charles. I hurt myself. But I was only human. I was only trying to survive. The world judged me, and they never let me forget it. The rumors, the headlines, the endless speculation about my personal life, it was all too much. They didn't care about the woman behind the headlines. They didn't care about the pain I carried. They just wanted the story, the scandal, the drama. But I wasn't just a scandal. I was a woman who had been broken by a life I didn't choose, by a marriage that was never what I imagined. I was a woman who needed to be loved, to be understood. And for a brief moment, I found that with James. But it wasn't enough. It never was. I'm not proud of my mistakes. I'm not proud of the things I did to try to fill the void. But I can't change the past. All I can do is live with it, learn from it, and hope that one day people will understand the real me, the woman who was just trying to find her way in a world that was too much to bear. And maybe, just maybe, that's all any of us can do. Chapter 2. Bulimia Struggles. When people look at me, they see the princess. They see the public figure, the smile, the wave, the perfect hair, and the sparkling dresses. But behind all of that, there was something else. Something they couldn't see. Something I couldn't hide, no matter how hard I tried. For years, I struggled with something no one knew about. Something I kept hidden in the darkest corners of my life. Bulimia. It wasn't just about food. It wasn't just about my body. It was about everything I couldn't control. Everything that was slipping through my fingers, my marriage, my sense of self, my dignity. It started quietly, like a whisper in my mind, a way to cope with the pain. The pain of feeling so alone, of feeling so trapped in a life I never chose. The pressure to be perfect, to always look like I had it all together, to be the dutiful wife, the perfect mother, the princess who never faltered. But inside, I was crumbling. There were days when the only way I could feel some semblance of control was through my eating. I'd eat, and then I'd purge. It wasn't just about the food, it was about the release. The only way I could push away the emotions that were choking me. The fear, the sadness, the anger, the loneliness. It was my secret, my shame. And I thought if I could just control this one thing, maybe I could feel like I had control over something in my life. But it wasn't that simple. It never is it? The more I tried to control it, the more it controlled me. It became an endless cycle, a battle I couldn't win. Every time I thought I had it under control, it would pull me back in, deeper than before. And yet, no one knew. No one saw the tears I cried behind closed doors. No one knew how hard it was to smile for the cameras when I felt like I was falling apart inside. The world saw the perfect princess. But I was just a woman who was hurting, who was trying to survive, trying to keep it together in a world that demanded so much of me. It wasn't until later that I found the strength to speak about it, to open up. But even then, it was hard. The shame, the guilt, it was overwhelming. I thought people would judge me, would see me as weak. But I couldn't carry it anymore. I had to let it out. I had to be honest with myself, even if no one else understood. I remember the days when I would look in the mirror and not recognize the woman staring back at me. I was so consumed by my own self-loathing, by the belief that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't worthy of love or happiness. But I was wrong. We're all wrong when we think that. No one should feel like they have to hurt themselves to fit into the mold the world has set for them. It's hard to talk about. It's hard to admit that I was that broken. But I was. I was human. I was struggling, just like so many others. And maybe, just maybe, by sharing my story, someone out there will feel less alone. Maybe they'll realize they don't have to hide, that they don't have to suffer in silence. I don't know if I'll ever fully heal from everything I've been through. I don't know if I'll ever be free from the scars. But I'm trying. I'm trying to be kinder to myself, to love myself in a way I never have before. And that's the hardest but most important thing I can do. So, if you ever see me, the princess in the spotlight, just know that there's more to me than what you see. There's a woman who's fought battles, who's faced her demons, and who's learning, slowly, that she's worth more than the sum of her struggles. Chapter 3. Estrangement from the royal family. When I married Charles, I thought I was joining a family, a unit. I thought we were all going to be together, that we would be a team.
But what I found wasn't a family.
It was an institution. A cold, distant place where everything was about duty, about appearances, about maintaining the image of perfection, no matter the cost. The royal family, oh, they were there, but they were never really there for me. Not in the way I needed them. Not in the way I had hoped. When I needed support, when I needed someone to listen, they were distant, detached. It was as if I was a cog in a machine, just another piece to keep the royal machinery running smoothly. And Charles, well, Charles and I were never what I thought we would be. I loved him. I truly did. But we were two different people, two different worlds colliding in a marriage that was never meant to be. I was young, naive, and full of hope. But he was already a man trapped in his own world, with his own duties, his own expectations. And somewhere along the way, we lost each other. The separation, the divorce. It was painful. It wasn't just the end of a marriage. It was the end of a dream. A dream I had built up in my mind. A dream that I thought would bring me happiness, love, and belonging. But instead, it was filled with loneliness, betrayal, and isolation. The royal family, they weren't there for me. They didn't protect me. They didn't understand me. I was an outsider in a family that was supposed to be mine. And that hurt more than anything. I wasn't just an outsider in my marriage. I was an outsider in the very family I had married into. I remember the times I would sit alone, in the silence of my own thoughts, feeling like I was drowning. I couldn't speak to anyone. I couldn't share my pain. Because in that world, vulnerability was a weakness. And I wasn't allowed to be weak. I wasn't allowed to feel. But I did feel. I felt everything. I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I felt the eyes of the public, the press, watching my every move, waiting for me to fail. I felt the coldness of the royal family, the distance that grew between us as time went on. And I felt the loneliness that consumed me, no matter how many people surrounded me. I thought the divorce would be the end of it. I thought it would bring me freedom. But it didn't. It only brought more isolation. The royal family distanced themselves even further. The tabloids had a field day, twisting every word, every action, turning my life into a spectacle. I was no longer the princess they had once adored. I was the fallen one, the one who couldn't make it work, the one who wasn't good enough. But here's the thing, what people didn't see, what they didn't understand, was that I was doing the best I could. I was fighting to survive in a world that was suffocating me. I was fighting for my own happiness, for my own sense of self. And maybe, just maybe, that's what the royal family couldn't understand. That I was more than just a title, more than just a role to play. I was a woman with feelings, with hopes, with dreams, and I wasn't going to let anyone take that away from me. So, yes, the separation and the divorce were painful. They were devastating. But they also set me free. Free from a life I was never meant to live. Free from the chains of duty and expectation. Free to be Diana, the woman, not just the princess. And maybe that's the hardest part of all, the realization that sometimes, to find yourself, you have to lose everything else. But in losing, you also find a strength you never knew you had. And for me, that was the beginning of a new chapter. A chapter where I could finally be myself. Chapter 4. Reckless Behavior Under Scrutiny. The cameras, they were always there. Always watching, always waiting for me to slip, to make a mistake. I was a prisoner of the lens, trapped in a world where every moment of my life was captured, scrutinized, twisted. I remember feeling like I was suffocating. Every time I stepped outside, every time I left the house, there they were, paparazzi flashing their cameras, chasing me down like I was some kind of animal in a zoo. And the pressure, it was unbearable. The pressure to be perfect, to smile, to wave, to be the princess everyone thought I should be. But inside, I was falling apart. Inside, I was a woman who was broken, who was struggling to keep her head above water. And sometimes I couldn't take it anymore. I would lash out. I would do things I later regretted, things that in the moment felt like a release. I would act out, be reckless, because it was the only way I could feel something other than the constant weight of being watched, judged, and criticized. I know they called it provocative behavior. They said I was trying to get attention, trying to stir up controversy. But what they didn't understand was that I was just trying to survive. I was trying to find a way to break free from the cage they had built around me. I was trying to reclaim a piece of myself that had been lost in the public eye. But it wasn't just the paparazzi. It was the world, the press, the public, all of them pointing fingers, judging, whispering behind closed doors. They didn't care about the real me. They didn't care about the pain I was going through. They didn't care about the loneliness, the heartbreak, the confusion. All they cared about was the spectacle. All they cared about was the drama, the scandal, the chaos. And so I acted out. I did things that, at the time, felt like the only way to fight back. I knew it wasn't healthy. I knew it wasn't the answer. But in those moments, it was the only way I could feel alive, the only way I could feel like I had some control over my own life. The media, they didn't care. They didn't care about my struggles. They didn't care about the human being behind the headlines. They just wanted the story. They just wanted the next scandal, the next bit of gossip. And I was their target. I was the one they tore apart, piece by piece, every day. I remember how it felt to be constantly under a microscope, to have every move I made analyzed, criticized, dissected. And the worst part? The worst part was knowing that no matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried to do the right thing, I would never be good enough in their eyes. But I couldn't keep living like that. I couldn't keep pretending to be something I wasn't. I couldn't keep hiding behind the mask of the perfect princess. So, yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I acted out. But I was human. I was a woman who was hurting, who was lost, who was trying to find her way in a world that wouldn't let her breathe. And maybe, just maybe, that's something the world will never understand. That sometimes when you're pushed to the edge, when you're drowning in the weight of your own pain, you do things that don't make sense. You do things that are reckless, that are provocative, because you're just trying to hold on. But I've learned, over time, that the only person who can truly understand me is myself. And I've learned that no matter how much the world watches, no matter how much they criticize, I have to live for me. I have to find my own peace, my own happiness, and my own way forward. And maybe, just maybe, that's the lesson in all of this, that we're all just human and sometimes we have to fall apart to find ourselves again.